James Flynn, Felix Sun, and Eileen Rose are all K-12 New York City public school teachers. They took a creative computing in education course last semester at the College of Staten Island, led by Stephen Azeka and Teon Brooks, exploring how creative computing could appear in their classrooms. The course culminated to a multi-week hackathon where teams identified the future of education, ideated solutions, and built a capstone project. They presented 2046 called They Want Classroom Teachers Back, an envisioning of AI humanoid instructors in schools. Their zine gives both a dystopic and utopic scenario of AI instructors. Alongside their zine, they presented BuddyBot, a chatbot that can help students decode words they don't understand, becoming a personalized tutor for the whole class. Check out their work, links in the description box below.
We're going to talk about our zine first because that was kind of our brainstorming starting point in all of this. It's called 2046, called They Want Classroom Teachers Back. So we were thinking about like, what does the future look like in 20 years? Aesthetically, we wanted it to kind of have like a punk rock 90s zine look, but I love cutting and pasting and collage, but I did want it to look digital because this is about the future. So AI was used as well as Photoshop and InDesign. Our concept was the left side would show like this dystopian view of teaching in the future, and then the right side would have a utopian vibe, brighter colors. The left is more monochromatic.
This one over on the dystopian side, we have screen tracking different awards and demerits for students, or rather classes actually. So we have Gold Star Heroes, Demerits, Last Chance. Ooh, that sounds ominous. And also, of course, Robot Instructor of the Year for 2045. TK421, that's a little nerd Easter egg I'm not going to explain right now. We have our robot teacher side, and we have our more utopian side.
We decided to name our AI chatbot BuddyBot, and on the right, the robots are co-teaching with the teachers, working with the students on social emotional learning, teaching.
And this one features, I think, my favorite line from this one, which over on the dystopian side, student 14, why were you late today? This infraction has been uploaded to the cloud. So that's kind of a more ominous look at what the future may hold. Over on the other side, we have kind of a explanation of how the rest of our project is laid out, the lesson plan and the app side of things.
I thought this was really interesting. When created, the BuddyBot can translate for multilingual learners, provide captioning and visuals for anyone requesting it, work with students with IEPs, very so much working with the individual student and knowing the student's background and working with the teacher as well.
Some of this exists now. I mean, we think about students having iPads, but this is a spin on it that has more of a social emotional component and everything working together. How does this look 20 years from now? And the humanoid robot part, of course, we'll talk a little bit more about that, but that's of interest to us really because that's been in the news a lot recently. It was even in the news this morning. I was driving my wife to work because of the LIR strike, and there was an item about how humanoid robots are being banned by some airlines now, which was funky to think about. So there's a lot coming out with that.
This is probably my favorite page. Just one human is being employed, and that human is in a control room watching, supervising the robot teachers. So again, human jobs are being eliminated. But then on the right, we still need humans. We need staff. We need everybody working, learning, teaching together.
And then we have our kind of funky ending to this, a more extreme outcome and a more supportive outcome.
If you scan this QR code, it's going to bring you to a PlayLab chatbot where you have a chance to play around with one of the apps that we created. We created an app that is able to decode difficult words in a paragraph or a sentence. So this is more individualized for the students. For example, we're reading history and they happen to come across a word that they don't understand, they would just go hop on the chat or talk to their BuddyBot, and they would be able to explain what this word is. In a classroom of 30 kids, the teacher doesn't have to, go to each of the kid one by one when they have like small issues like this one. They could just hop onto the BuddyBot and talk to them, and they will help them, guide them appropriately. So this is what we think is one of the future trends of teaching, to have like someone, like a personalized tutor that's with the student in class. Feel free to play around with it.
One of the cool things really about PlayLab was, in our experience, it really was pretty well locked down. It is something definitely for teachers to play around with a little bit now. It was a lot harder to kind of get it to break and to do things it wasn't supposed to. I didn't really have experiences with it doing that. And we have just kind of a little footnote here about how towards the very end of the course, we played around a little bit with Claude Cowork as well. And we plugged what we had from PlayLab into this, and we were able to get it to make it look more visual, have an outline up at the top with some strategies, and have a read aloud function and a Spanish interface to support English language learners. And that was really cool to see that if you paid Claude a bit of money, that it would code it for you. So this is about $30. This other thing that was in the news that also inspired us, so I did want to just mention that when we come up with and talk about humanoid robot co-teachers, this is not just some random thing we're thinking about. Robot teacher assistants have existed in South Korea for about 2 decades for English as a foreign language, and this is something that's now being pushed by the White House. It's not something that was really a big focus of any of the courses that we've been taking in our program, but we did dive in and look a little bit at what the best practices are for that kind of scenario. In our lesson plan side of things, we have it divided up. So we have the human co-teacher, we have the robot co-teacher, we have the BuddyBot device using apps like the one Felix was talking about, and the student portion. From the limited research that we did, again, because this is something just coming for this project, the recommendations for the humanoid robot co-teacher are to mostly follow good co-teaching practices that already exist out there, such as for special education and for English language learners, just with it being having to check in and defer to the human co-teacher. Our lesson plan was focused on this book, The Cosmobiography of Sun Ra by Chris Rushlia, and you can see that here in our lesson plan printout, and I have the book here. Sun Ra was a avant-garde jazz musician who was also a Afrofuturism pioneer, and for our lesson plan, we looked at a lesson plan around context clues for reading could be devised and then supported by the chatbot that we had designed.